This is going to be my last SpongeBob review of the day. And this episode is called Arrgh. And it came out on March 15th, 2000. This came out on my birthday. I was 4 years old when this episode came out. It came out on my birthday. That's pretty sweet. Anyhow. It starts out. Mr. Krabs is upset that they didn't have any customers. So he said if he didn't make any money, he'd break out in a rash. And then SpongeBob talks about how he found 8 gold doubloons. And Mr. Krabs gets greedy because he loves money, so he wants some. And it's not real. It's just like a board game. And SpongeBob wants them to play with them. And Mr. Krabs is like, why did you wash off the table? He's like, I cleaned the tables. He's like, but did you scrape off all the gum off the undersides? And then they're chewing the gum that they cleaned off. So he's like, I already took care of it. It's nasty. Patrick blew a bubble with it. And then, Mr. Krabs plays. Funny thing was, this game's kind of like Monopoly. And this game's actually, it's called, the Flying Dutchman's Treasure Hunt or something like that. And it's based off of real treasure maps. That's how they market it as, because they have to market stuff. So they did that so people would want to buy it. And Patrick, it's kind of like Monopoly though, because you have to take these cards, and you can really tell because Patrick had the option whether or not to send Mr. Krabs or SpongeBob to jail. And he chooses Mr. Krabs. Is like, that's just like Monopoly. So I think that's what it was supposed to be. And Mr. Krabs is like, Patrick, you're fired. And he's like, but I don't even work here. Would you like a start? And then he goes, would you like a job? Start now. He's like, boy, would I? And then he fires him. And then SpongeBob gets one, and he can look through the tree. And Mr. Krabs gets one, ends up going. And on his turn, he finds the treasure. And I guess if you find the treasure, you win the game. So so a customer actually tries to come in and play to eat a Krabby Patty, but Mr. Krabs is like, can't you see we're closed? Because he's just getting into this game. They play 17 times. So Mr. Krabs and Patrick and SpongeBob want to go to bed. And they do. And Patrick was already sleeping, so SpongeBob had to carry him home. Imagine how hard that was. And then when SpongeBob gets home, Mr. Krabs had went to his house. He had opened the door. Guess SpongeBob doesn't lock it. But it's just kind of creepy. He just went to the house so he could play a game. A stupid board game. And SpongeBob just got so annoyed by him keeping insisting. He's like, he just flipped out and said he wanted to go to bed. And he apologized and says it's just a game, And then Mr. Krabs leaves. And then SpongeBob's asleep. And then when Mr. Krabs is out there, we hear him. He says, "Oh, pineapple home. Wake up and prepare to be boarded." And then he thinks he's talking about the game, but he's not. There actually are going to be pirates. And Mr. Krabs is obviously the captain. And we see but both Patrick and SpongeBob say pirates, and Patrick just randomly pops up off the back of SpongeBob's house. It's like, why the hell is he in his backyard? I wonder if he was gonna visit them that way, because they are neighbors, so I guess it's not that weird, but it's kind of strange. And they start skipping, saying we're gonna be pirates, and Mr. Krabs like, stop the skipping, pirates can skip. So he has them put on disguises so he wouldn't be embarrassed to be seen with them. And then SpongeBob says, I'm Peggy the pirate. He had 2 peg legs on when he trips, because it's probably not easy to balance on that. And then Patrick says, I'm blind, Beard the pirate. And then he tripped on something, but what the hell? I mean, unless he tripped on SpongeBob, but yeah. And then Patrick's rowing the ship, and SpongeBob's like the lookout. Mr. Krabs keeps an eye on the map. They want to see the map, but only the captain can lay eyes on the map. And Mr. Krabs, being the captain, being that he can only be the one that looks at it. We're going to find out why about this later. And then, Mr. SpongeBob kind of goes, okie dokie then, and Mr. Krabs like, oh, a pirate doesn't say okie dokie, then the pirate says Arrgh. So then they're about to hit, a rock, And SpongeBob's trying to tell him, but I guess he thinks he has to say Arrgh after every word. So he's just like, Cap, Arrgh, about Arrgh, to Arrgh. And then Patrick thinks the same thing. And before he can finish really telling them, they hit the land. But the question is why didn't Patrick just stop the ship if he knew they were going to hit it? I don't know why he didn't do that. So then, Mr. Krabs just is like, okay, from now on, only the captain says Arrgh. And then, Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob give him a status report. And, SpongeBob's like, the whole ship is underwater, Captain. And he's like, oh. But the funny thing was is the ship actually is underwater. Mr. Krabs like, a treasure hunt's gonna have to continue on foot. Then we see like the 3-leaf tree, well, a 2-leaf tree, and like the seaweed tree, but it ends up having 3, so Mr. Krabs takes one off, and you have to go like east to get the treasure. Patrick, Mr. Krabs asked Patrick which way is east, and Patrick looks at his compass and say, that way, Captain. And then when they get there, there's no X. It was 10,000 paces east, and they didn't get their X. And Patrick was like, oh, when east? I thought you meant west. And I botched and said west by accident. And Mr. Krabs was like, west? What kind of carpets are you eating, lad? He's like, this one, sir. And it ended up saying, west. And he fires Patrick again from, I don't know what. But then SpongeBob and Patrick end up getting tired after like the 5,000th number because they have been walking all day. So they want to like, I guess, so Mr. Krabs like, oh, you gotta be tired or we be hungry. You want to go home. Then one of my captains, just a bunch of sand, he gets all upset. And he says that the captain's nothing without his loyal crew. And SpongeBob and Patrick are like, we'll be your loyal crew. And then Mr. Krabs like, you'll stay with me. And they say that they'll be the most loyal crew ever. And then later on in the episode, SpongeBob is like, I'm so loyal, I don't mind sleeping on the cold, hard ground while Captain Krabs sleeps in his warm, cozy tent. What the fuck? And Mr. Patrick says, I'm so loyal, I haven't bathed in weeks. And he's like, SpongeBob's like, but we have only been out here for 3 hours. And he's like, I know. So then SpongeBob kind of like scoots over because I guess he doesn't want to smell it. And then he's like, I'm so loyal, I don't want to sleep till we find the treasure. So they go to get Captain Krabs to see if they'll go look for it now. But he's not there. So then they see like he's left the map on the table. And Patrick goes to look at it. And SpongeBob's like, we're not supposed to look at the map. But Patrick's like, I'm not looking, I'm touching. There's no rule against that, is there? He's good at finding loopholes. As dumb as he is, Patrick is very good at finding loopholes, which is something that's cool about him. So then they both touch it, but then the map opens by itself, because they were touching it. And then they just start, like, looking at it. They stick their eyeballs out. But then they realize that the map is the Game Boy that they were playing earlier in the episode. It's the same thing. It's like the Game Boy taped to a piece of paper. And he's like, Mr. Krabs is like, don't you think that this is a problem? So he catches them. So he goes a little bit crazy, flips out on them. And then when Mr. SpongeBob and Patrick like duck their heads because they're so scared, and they see that the X marks the spot. So the game actually was based on a real treasure map. So they end up digging, and then they find the treasure, and we see like there's gold doubloons and what's it called? Forget what it's called, but like diamonds and stuff in there. And SpongeBob and Patrick ask each other what they're gonna do with their share, and Mr. Krabs like, what shares? You're not getting my treasure. Mr. Krabs wants to take it all for himself, but SpongeBob says that since they found it together, they all deserve a share, which makes sense. And I don't even think Mr. Krabs really deserves a share. He really didn't do shit. Patrick drove the boat, even though he crashed it. SpongeBob and Patrick dug up that fucking treasure, so they don't deserve shit. I know Mr. Krabs figured it out, but Mr. Krabs wouldn't have even known about it in the first place if SpongeBob and Patrick weren't playing the game. So Mr. Krabs doesn't deserve shit. But as they're arguing though and fighting over the treasure raft, the Flying Dutchman overhears what they're saying, and he gets pissed that somebody drug up his treasure. But we think he got pissed, and Mr. Krabs throws SpongeBob and Patrick under the bus and says that they dug it up. And he's like, well, you saved me a lot of digging, you did, so here's a reward. And he gives them 2 gold doubloons, which I think they should have gotten more out of it, but they didn't. And when they get their reward, Mr. Krabs like, where's my reward? I'm the captain. And he gets like a plastic treasure chest that's based on the real treasure that looks exactly like it, but a smaller version of it, and it's plastic. And that was the end of the episode. That was about it. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. That's really it. So subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Owen the Talkinator. Add Owen Piddleditch as a friend on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Owen the Birdman. Subscribe to Wrestling Fortune 44, where I make all my wrestling videos. And I'm going to make one tonight. Subscribe to CM Brothers, where me and Adam make wrestling and non-wrestling videos. Subscribe to CM Live Reactions, where I make live reactions to anything. Add Owen Finch, and Adam Finch as friends on Facebooks. Add me on Snapchat, Birdman105. Add me on Xbox Live, WrestlingFan44. And add me on Instagram. That's a default name, so it's down in the description box below. And that's all I have to say. All I have to say is peace out.